being here. Thank you for joining. Everybody come from the keynote, I guess. We just saw the keynote, awesome. So I'm going to unpack today some of what you saw around the new Unified Edge launch that Jeff shared on stage. What I'm going to try to do and set up kind of the context behind some of the why we do what we did. This is a platform that we've been working on for over 2 years in the business unit. This was designed from the ground up. So I'm really excited to share with you some of the reasons why we did what we did, and I'll talk to you a little bit, go into a little bit more depth on the product itself. My name is Danny McGinniss. I look after product management here for the Compute business unit at Cisco. So pretty much that means all things UCS, Intersight, our partnerships with partners like NetApp and Pure and Vast and VMware, Nutanix, Red Hat, that all kind of originates out of our business unit. All right, so you've probably seen a lot of stats this week. You've heard a little bit of talk around the concept of this AI readiness index. I just want to share real quickly what that actually is. This is a survey that we do, a double-blind survey that we do with over 8,000 industry leaders across 30 countries, across 26 industries. It's probably one of the largest surveys of its kind in this space, and we gather a large amount of insights from it. And so you'll see a lot of those stats in presentations here at Cisco Live. But one of the big things that changed this time around in the last 6 months has been that although AI is on top of mind for everyone, and it's significant in their budgets, it's also changing to be more about an ROI conversation than it's ever been. So if you look back a year ago, there was this fear of missing out. Let's consume some GPUs, we'll start working on some projects, we'll see where it goes. But now most industry leaders are really tasked with showing value for what they're spending on. And so that's really changing the dynamics for you thinking about how you're delivering back to your organizations and what you're able to deliver back to your orgs. The other interesting thing, you've probably seen this, you might see this 13% around a lot. There's only 13% of the respondents out of 8,000, it's pretty significant, that actually feel ready for AI. That's a low number. So that means there's a lot of work to do, there's a lot of room for improvement, and clearly there's a lot of areas where I think Cisco can offer value to our customers to help you get ready and feel more prepared. I get the luxury of traveling all over the world and talking to a lot of customers and a lot of partners, and there are so many questions right now from, is my infrastructure ready? Do I have the right power, space, and cooling to do this? If I did, do I actually have the right people to know how to turn it up? If I was going to turn it up, do I have the right security posture in place in order to actually take something from a proof of concept and make it real? And so, as we think about on the IT side of how to answer those questions, as we're thinking about the problems and the new responsibilities or the new asks that are coming our way, there's also the fact that the industries around us are transforming as we speak. And so if you think about even in our personal lives, I mean, here's just a couple examples. Think in the retail space. In retail, the entire customer experience is being reinvented. We're thinking about how to do loss prevention in different ways. We're thinking about this kind of concept of the store of the future. If you move over to manufacturing, operations are being completely streamlined. It's almost like we have the Industrial Revolution happening all over again. Quality control, risk management are all being done through the use of artificial intelligence based on the data that we're collecting inside of these environments. And then if we look at something like healthcare, right? Think about you as a patient, how that is changing. The time in which responses are being generated based on the use of new tooling and new computers can dramatically change the outcome of a patient or significantly change the outcome for a patient in that experience. And so, if you think about the why, I mean, this is, I think, really important when we start to think about where workloads are being placed. For years, we have been placing cameras and sensors inside of locations like this, in stores that we shop at, in manufacturing plants, in hospitals, and doctors' offices. But if you think about the data that's there, the cameras that are watching us, the sensors that are monitoring us, a lot of the data is just wasted. Right? Think about it, it's thrown away. Even your voice or body language, it's data that's being collected, generated, but often discarded because there wasn't been a tool or applications to make use of it. But that's what's changing right now. So in order to deliver some of the things that we talked about up here, you're actually starting to make better use of the data. We're actually moving into, I didn't bring the slide into this presentation, but we're actually moving to a point where 75% of data processing will actually happen at the edge. It's a complete shift, where today there's almost only 10% of data processing happening at the edge. And so, as you think about where that's happening, so what's it doing, right? It's driving more and more demand for edge solutions. So if you happen to be on the IT infrastructure side of the house, there's actually companies like this that are talking to your company about new solutions that they're offering to unlock all of that data that's being generated there to transform that experience. And so this is just a sampling of some of the ISVs and the solution providers that we're working with in this space. And so to kind of bring that all together, right now there's more attention on the data center than we've ever seen, right? I mean, everyone, it's all we're talking about. If you come to Cisco Live, you come to any industry event, it's completely changed. But at the same time, you have new personas in the mix. You have lines of business, you have AI practitioners, you have research analysts, data scientists. Now you have people that are meeting with those vendors that I just had up on the screen, and many, many more, all thinking about new requirements that we as IT teams have to now figure out how to support. And so this is bringing tremendous challenges to pretty much everything we do on a daily basis. And I think for us, what was the genesis of where we were going when we were thinking about edge becoming so prevalent a couple of years back, it was really that around a lot of, yes, things we do, we're talking about big honking data center compute and networking solutions to build and inference some of these very, very large language models. But the real change is actually happening in some of those customer experience, how it's transforming, when we think about the inferencing and the machine learning that is happening based on the data center or the applications that are going to start to run at the edge. And so our answer to you, or our response to you, our recommendation to you is that you really have to think about the edge and the data center as one. For many years, we kind of in this industry, for those that have been in it for a couple of decades, we watched this pendulum swing from centralized to decentralized and back to centralized. And so we were kind of slowly coming back to the middle with not necessarily cloud repatriation, but cloud right-sizing. But AI has changed this drastically. It's really made us think about this concept of data gravity and running workloads where the data sits. That's really what we're trying to unlock with AI, is where data sits. And so more and more, data sits in the cloud, data sits in your data center, and data sits at the edge. And so from an IT team's perspective, or whatever part of the IT work stream you're supporting inside your organization, my recommendation is you really have to think about solving for all of it. You can no longer think about the data center being the central place to run every workload, because we need real-time processing, we need real-time inferencing happening at the edge to create some of the experiences that I just alluded to up here. All right, so let me just give you kind of brief background on our compute portfolio. So the good answer is we can help you out in pretty much every part of what I just talked to you, regardless of where your AI workloads are running. We've got an answer for you. Many of you, if you're familiar with UCS, you're probably familiar with us on the blade side. This is how we become probably best known in compute, or modular architecture, UCSX. This is an area that we have about 50% market share in. This is also an area that we've doubled down in. As a lot of our competitors have kind of divested in this space, we believe that at a time where power and space and cooling are more precious than ever, this is really a way that we can help save you as you're trying to get capacity back inside of your data centers to reclaim, to make more room for new AI workloads. There's a lot that we can offer you here in terms of power, space, and cooling savings. With that, we know many of you have a desire or a liking for rack, and so this is an area that we've also heavily invested in over the last couple of years. Everything you see here has latest and greatest Intel and AMD processors in it, and most can support your lower end GPUs as well. On the AI density servers, so when we start thinking about the data center AI workloads that I was referring to, We've also now had in market for over a year and a half the HGX architectures from NVIDIA that supports your H100s, your H200s, and our most recent box now supports the B300 platform. Below that, you'll see our MGX architecture. That's the PCIe version, so think of that as a lower cost of entry for most enterprise use cases. Supporting the RTX 6000 Pro, if we're all familiar with that one. You hear Jensen and NVIDIA talking a lot about that. It's a lot lower of cost of entry, allows you to, I think, get your feet wet into AI and run some pretty sizable workloads as well in this space. 2, 4, or 8 PCIe GPUs in that box. We also brought in a new double wide node inside the X series. I told you this is an area we're doubling down in, so just recently we released this. Now you can run up to 8 RTX 6000, that's 600 watt GPUs, 8 of them inside of our modular architecture, with a tremendous amount of configurability and how you can assign different PCIe GPUs to different compute nodes. Really, really flexible option, probably the most flexible option in the industry when it comes to thinking about GPUs and composability. And then all the new HGX continue to follow on. Rubin's not too far around the corner. We'll have that out towards the end of next year. All right, and then lastly, what you saw on stage at Keynote today, this is our new Edge platform, was codenamed Avatar, for some of you that may have heard about it, but Unified Edge. And that's what I'm gonna spend some time here talking about. We'll break down some of the details on this one. All right, so I talked to you about the why, what's happening on the business side. We know we've got a lot of data sitting at the edge. We know we're generating a lot of data at the edge. Hopefully by now we understand it's really important to process and inference that data at the edge. But now let's bring it down to kind of why we haven't done this as prevalently or predominantly as maybe we would have in the past. So as the needs are changing, you'll start to see more requests to run more compute resources at the edge. But think about it. Think about what the edge looked like. It was a disaster, right? You got a combination of servers and routers and dedicated appliances and a whole bunch of cables running. It's a mess. So to manage this at scale, it's actually an IT team's nightmare to do. And so we kind of avoided that at all costs in the industry. And so this is really the problem we set out to solve when we designed this platform. And so I introduced to you today, we just launched this last week, so at Partner Summit, so you're really one of the first teams to get to see it firsthand. This is our Cisco Unified Edge platform. This is really our attempt at bringing the best of everything we do in Cisco together. Compute, networking, storage, security, all into a single modular platform. So I mentioned to you on the slide before this that we're really good at modular, we believe in it. Well, there's something pretty cool about having a really small modular edge platform that gives you a pay-as-you-grow sort of model in these locations. All right, so let's break this one down a little bit. So I mentioned to you, we've got compute, storage, software, and networking all within the same box. We've drastically simplified the way that it's all managed from an operation standpoint, and we've secured fused security into pretty much every element of the chassis, from the physical all the way up through the applications that are running on it. All right, so let's take a look at this one a little bit. 5 modules, so you get 5 discrete servers, if you so choose. 5 slots to house, and then you also see networking modules down there in the bottom right. We'll talk about them in a second. On the compute side, can support GPUs, NVIDIA GPUs, AMD GPUs, Intel GPUs. We also support up to 120 terabytes of storage in each one of those compute nodes. From the networking side, what we've actually done, this release is about 6 months after we FCS. This box will FCS in about a month. 6 months after, we're actually going to give you a Catalyst 8300. We didn't change it, it's still a Catalyst router. And that's what one of those 5th modules are. So you actually get the networking components directly inside the same chassis. So all the SD-WAN capabilities, all the firewall capabilities, the IDS, the IDP, all that you've come to love in the Catalyst side, that's actually what's sitting in one of those boxes. So whether or not you run it external, or you use the same power, the same cooling, the same chassis, we can offer that to you here as well. The other cool thing that we did here, networking is in our DNA or in our heritage, as you know. So we actually built all the networking into the back. So there's actually a 250 gig switch sitting in the back of this box. So unless you need to go to very high capacity networking, everything for east-west traffic will be done node to node inside the back of the chassis. This makes it really, really easy when you think about serviceability. Remember all those cables I had on the previous scheme, the 25 cables? They go away. You don't have to have any cables outside of your WAN connection coming into this box if you so choose. So it's a 250 gig switch sitting in the back. It's all redundant, so you actually have dual lanes, 2 switches with 50 gigs per node capacity sitting there. On the front, for your WAN connectivity, we offer you anywhere from 10 gig to 100 gig connectivity. And additionally, you will see some networking ports on the compute nodes themselves. If you choose, we can give you up to 100 gig PCIe card sitting in that box for if you need really high speed capability coming out of the compute node itself. AI-ready GPUs, so today we're supporting like an L4 class GPU. We'll actually go up to an RTX 6000 Pro in a double wide blade coming out in the not too distant future for this platform. Intel, if you're familiar with Intel Xeon D, now they call it the Xeon System on a Chip, or SoC. Same processor, just what they named it in version 6. And that's what's powering this inside the platform. The other big piece on this box is the ecosystem. So some of the logos that you shared, Bhavan, we've been hard at work, not just to offer you a platform, but make sure that we complement it with a wide ecosystem of partners that we believe are starting to become more prevalent in this space across all of the verticals and the solutions that I was sharing with you a little while ago. All right, let's talk operations for a second. So the hardware itself is pretty cool, right? We've done a ton. I could go on and on about what we've done in there. A lot more innovation that I didn't even get to touch on in this session. But the operations, it's what's really, really cool. So we've thought long and hard about how hard it is we don't have talented tech or high-skilled tech quite often in remote locations. In the data center, we have our high-skilled technicians, the ones that are really, really competent in managing infrastructure. But when we move out to our edge locations that are sometimes in the middle of nowhere, what we recognize is that we don't have those same people, and it's really expensive to truck roll, right? It can be super, super costly when we have to send a high-skilled tech out to a remote site, let alone do it at hundreds or thousands of them. And so we worked really hard to make sure that everything from the day this box arrives on site through the entire lifecycle management of the platform, you can be completely hands-off. To the point that the general manager inside of a coffee shop or in a retail location should be able to service the platform without you having to send truck rolls. Let's talk about this a little bit. So the first thing I mentioned is the zero-touch provisioning. We've outfitted Unified Edge with an NFC reader inside the platform. A non-skilled technician is able to take an iPhone or a smartphone, use their InnerSight credentials to log in, tap the NFC reader on the chassis, and essentially and immediately create a connectivity back to InnerSight to let it know that it's ready to be connected into the central management platform. This is what it looks like on your iPhone. It's claimed. At this point, the work inside the store is essentially done, outside of plugging that WAN cable into it. And so now when we start to think about the phone home, InnerSight is completely SaaS-based managed, so it's all available from the cloud. And so when we start thinking about the deployments here, so on the right-hand side, what you're starting to look at is InnerSight itself, so that's the GUI inside of InnerSight. And on the left here is a logical representation of the compute resource, or the Unified Edge. And so what you notice is that InnerSight has absolute knowledge of every single piece of capacity that's sitting inside the box. As we add another compute node with a GPU in it, InnerSight immediately becomes aware of that. As we add a networking node, InnerSight now immediately becomes aware of that. And so everything that's being added by that low-skilled technician is being recognized and is able to now be controlled just by using a smartphone to connect back and let InnerSight know that it was ready to be configured. Same thing with PoE ports as we get into the networking side. All right, so another thing you're going to hear us talking about that was done in the demo today on the keynote is this concept of fleet-wide operations. Since the beginning of time when we've been managing servers with either UCSM or now Intersight for the last 5 years or so, we've always been excellent at managing thousands, if not tens of thousands of devices in a handful of locations, meaning your data center. What we did with fleet-wide management was created the opposite paradigm. So we can manage a handful of devices in thousands of locations. And that involved a significant overhaul or enhancements to Intersight's capabilities. But what that allows us to do is start to manage many of these locations at scale. And so the idea, there was a concept called blueprints that we start to throw around a lot lately. And let me kind of simplify the idea for a blueprint. The way we think about a store getting rolled out, if you're, I don't know, if you're a coffee shop, one of the largest in the world, you have kiosks. You have stores that maybe go in shopping malls, and you have standalone malls. So let's just assume that's 3 different profiles of a store. Rather than you managing the individual configuration for the kiosk versus the independent store, wouldn't it be nice if we just created a profile that had all of your storage settings, all of your compute settings, all of your GPU settings, all of your networking settings, your OS settings, your application settings, and you could just hit a button and deploy that to store type A or store type kiosk? And that's essentially what we did in this concept of fleet management. And so through a single click, we can actually choose the blueprint or blueprints that we want to deploy to that site, that store type or that site type, and then deploy it at scale. And whether or not we do this to one device, or we do it to dozens of devices or hundreds of devices, this is the capability that we offer you, ultimately simplifying how these devices are managed inside of your organization. Lastly, I mentioned that security was fused in at every single layer, so let me just spend a second or two unpacking this. On the hardware side, so if I didn't mention, this is a NEBS 3 compliant platform. So it's not necessarily meant to sit out in the middle of a oil field or anything like that, but it is meant to handle the dust and the dirt and things that we find. You'd be surprised how much dust is in a bakery, or coffee grinds create dirt inside of a coffee shop, sometimes more than we see in an industrial or manufacturing facility. And so we built air filtration, security bezel on top to physically protect the box. But then we've also added security in at pretty much every layer in the stack. So if you think about what we do with Intersight, I mentioned about having hundreds, if not thousands of deployments. Well, once you create that blueprint or that golden config for store type kiosk or store type independent, we'll manage that configuration drift for you, so that if it were to change, we can tell you that that store has deviated from your golden config and give you a dashboard to really simplify. Think about this at thousands of locations. Give you a dashboard to understand exactly where you are in your security posture for everything from your firmware settings to your drivers to the OS versions that you're running on the boxes, and then help you correct that if it falls out of or if it drifts. We've also brought in all of our zero trust capabilities that you're familiar with in our SD-WAN. So as that Catalyst node goes into the box, being able to bring in the SASE capabilities that you're familiar with from Cisco and all of our zero trust access, that's all inherently built in. And then hopefully you've gotten a chance to see AI defense. We've been talking a lot about that. So if you think about the AI models that are running on top of the platform, everything from detection to discovery to security and safety prevention inside the box, that is all built in and then all tied together with Splunk for observability and monitoring. And so we've worked really hard to think about everything from how we change the hardware to how we operate, to also make sure that you have a solid security posture from the physical all the way up through the application in the box. Hopefully making you understand that managing at scale at the edge is a reality, and based on all of the new things and solutions that are coming your way, it doesn't seem as daunting to actually do this at scale as it should be. All right, so lastly, I'll leave you with We very much believe that Cisco is really the only company in the world that has the posture to do all of this. We bring deep networking experience, tied with all the compute innovation that we've been doing for many, many years, kind of pack that into this platform. And whether or not we're doing this at the edge or doing it as a data center, our goal is to help you deploy this regardless of where that workload needs to run. The SaaS-based operating model that I mentioned with Intersight, I'm not sure if I stress this enough, but every single one of those servers that I showed you on that screen, everything in the portfolio, our modular, our rack, our dense AI, and our edge, is all managed via the exact same operating platform, all through Intersight. We're the only ones in the industry that have even dared to try to attempt that. It's not easy, right? To make sure that everything is managed through the same platform. So all the things that we do, like predictive intelligence, or connected TAC, or proactive RMA, you'd never have to change your operating model. And so we believe that that was really, really important, and to be able to keep it unified regardless of the workload that you're running environment. You're not giving up your traditional workloads anytime soon. Lastly, or second to lastly, multi-layered security throughout. Just what I talked about. We're thinking about security at every single piece of the AI stack, at the physical layer, at the networking layer, at the compute layer, at the container layer, and at the application layer. We have you covered for all of that across. And then lastly, our commitment in just reliable, highly performant enterprise infrastructure, and obviously the support organization to go around with it. We believe that this sets us up really well to help you be successful in this space. All right, so with that, I'm going to wrap. I really appreciate you taking the time here today. Enjoy the rest of the show. Talk to you soon. Thank you.